We are now joined by the managing editor at NHL.com and former New York Rangers reporter, Jim Cerny. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. Indeed, Hanukkah right now, Christmas around the corner. The Rangers not feeling so much in the holiday spirit recently. Some struggles to the team, some struggles to their star goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, up to a over 3 goals against and a 902 save percentage this year. And, the save percentages around the league have gone down. 902 is about average, but, Igor Shesterkin's not an average goaltender. At least that's not what he's shown for the first couple of years here in New York. Just talk about his struggles and how worried you are about Shesterkin.
Well, I mean, first of all, I got to correct you. Maybe the Rangers are in the holiday spirit because there's been a lot of giving recently, right?
True. That is
The last
true.
week and a half or whatever. But yeah, I get your point. After such a splendid first couple months of the season, this is really the first adversity that they're facing, and I think there has to be a little concern there with Igor. What is it now? 7 out of 17 games he's allowed 4 goals or more. I mean, that's insane. We're not talking about Jack Campbell here. We're talking about Igor Shesterkin, and so it's kind of a stunning number. But it's part and parcel. And like if you take the most recent game, the Maple Leaf game, and you break that down, did Igor look great? No. But was he hung out to dry as well? The first goal certainly, and was it the third goal where there was rebound, save, rebound, save, rebound, save? Oh, score. It can't happen. So it's a team-wide issue. It's not just the goalie, but we're spoiled, right? Because Igor will make the easy saves look easy, and he even makes the spectacular saves look easy when he's at his best. And I'd agree that he's fighting it a little bit right now. He's not at the top of his game. Maybe it's a confidence thing. He missed some time earlier. He came back, played well after that, but you wonder whatever that undisclosed injury was, is it something that's still nagging him a little bit? Again, we don't know. Rangers aren't going to say Igor is not making excuses. Peter Laviolette's not making excuses. But I think it's an area of concern, both the goalies play, but also how the teams played in front of them. The Rangers dominated puck possession over the first couple months of the season, where they were driving the play, controlling the puck in the offensive zone on a consistent basis. Here, they're falling behind early. That's been the latest trend, falling behind early, playing catch up. And they were able to do it, right? For a handful of games, they were able to catch up and come back and win games and earn points. But any player will tell you, after, when you've had a great stretch of hockey, at the end of that stretch, you may not be playing great, but still winning games. And the players know it and the coaches know it. So they know at some point, if that trend continues and you continue not to, play your best hockey, it's going to end up costing you wins and points. And, that's kind of what's happened the last week and a half.
Yeah, and you saw how well they played defensively against the Kings in that first period, not letting the game get out of hand. Over the last 6 games, Rangers have been outscored 11-3 in that first period. So you're right about not starting on time, and it was something that they were very good with at the start of the season. Obviously gotten away from them now. Igor Shesterkin over the last 3 starts has given up 6 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, and hasn't had a save percentage above 862. So definitely some cause for concern. If you look on the other side, I mean, Jonathan Quick is 8-2-0 with a 922 save percentage and a 2.2 goals against. And, he's made some elite saves as well at his ripe age of 37 years old. So do you see any goalie controversy here on December 13th?
Well, as soon as you said Jonathan Quick's name, I knew goalie controversy was going to be somehow worked into the conversation, right? I don't envision a goalie controversy, not at this point of Jonathan Quick's career. That said, might he get a few more starts. And, when they originally mapped things out, on the calendar, when Benoit Allaire sits there and says, yeah, Igor, Quickie, Igor, might Quick get some more starts in that stretch? Yeah, absolutely. I think you'd be smart to do that. Ride the hot hand because he has been outstanding. And to be honest, I guess it's kind of taken it in a different direction here. What a revelation. I was concerned going into the season about where they were going to be with the goaltending behind Igor because I really thought Jonathan Quick was at the end. No disrespect to him. And I got, he'll get a boost coming back to the tri-state area and everything, Connecticut kid. But I was concerned. Like, he was not good last year for the LA Kings. Wasn't great for the Vegas Golden Knights when he played better, but he had a better team in front of him. Wasn't great in the preseason and has been outstanding. I mean, outstanding for the Rangers this year. A real revelation. But that said, I think you really want to keep him in the role that he's in. Like, Igor needs to be your number one guy. If you're winning a Stanley Cup this year, and I know this is going to sound weird, Igor is your goalie, not the 3-time Stanley Cup champion, right? I don't think Jonathan Quick's carrying you through the playoffs or playing on a real consistent basis where he could wear down or what have you. But I could see him picking up more starts than I think we all anticipated if Igor continues to struggle. Again, Rangers are first place team right now. They're in a good spot. They're, I think, the best team, no doubt, in that division. And they'll find their game. And I think when the team picks up in front of Igor, he's going to find his game, as well, and regain a little bit of confidence. So I don't see a goalie controversy, but I guess come back to me in a couple months if Igor is still struggling and Quickie's still undefeated in regulation.
Well, a guy that, never really had any goalie controversies around him that you covered for your career, and arguably, I will say, the best Rangers goalie in their history. I know other people will say Mike Richter, but Henrik Lundqvist, just, it seemed like we never had any sort of issue when it came to Henrik Lundqvist's performance on a nightly basis. Just talk about your time covering the Rangers and specifically with Hank.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple guys I covered there at the very start of my career. I was very, very fortunate to cover Mike Richter. In fact, I was there. I was covering the playoff game against the Penguins, which was his NHL debut when a desperate Phil Esposito brought him up. Third different goalie to start for the Rangers in that sweep loss to the Penguins. And I covered him through the Cup season and many of his years before I moved on to the Islanders. So I agree. As great as Richter was, Henrik to me was the single greatest goalie, at least in Rangers history in my lifetime. It's hard to talk about guys from the 40s, 50s, 30s, way before our time. But yeah, Henrik was special, and part of it was how special he was from a mental point of view. You could all see a goalie playing great physically on the ice, right? Making great saves, being in great position. In Henrik's case, you're rising up in all those game sevens, one heroic save after another. But for me, it was the mental side. And because I worked for the team as I was the in-house beat reporter for their website, I was around them every day. I was around him every day for 9 years. Practice, games, travel, the plane, got to see him behind the scenes. And he's a special guy. That preparation, that intensity that he brought every single day. We used to laugh, the guys on the beat. Nothing. I never saw him angrier than the fact that Marian Gaborik owned him during practices. Like, they would do shootouts and everything. Gaborik owned Henrik. And there wasn't just the typical jousting back and forth, you SOB, or, ha, ha, ha. Like, he'd be pissed. And you'd see him, you get beaten 3 times in a shootout by Gaborik at the end of practice, and Gabby's rubbing it in and everything. And you go in the room afterwards, and Henrik had to cool down. Like, that's how intense he was. That's what he brought. I'm not saying Igor's not that way or Jonathan Quick's not that way. And listen, Quick's a 3-time Cup winner, as we pointed out. But it was that mental edge that Henrik brought that I think set him apart. You know, again, on top of the fact of what a great athletic, intelligent guy he was. It was that intensity and passion that he brought that I think really set him apart. And I'm a big believer in this, and I don't know, some people may disagree, but I think if he was the goalie of this Rangers team, man, I'd be running to the bookie to lay some money on them to win the cup, because I'd argue he never really had a team this good. Like, he never had a number one center like Mika Zibanejad, right? Stepan, Brassard, really, really good number twos, but not really elite number ones. Mika's an elite number one. Elite year after year point producer like Artemi Panarin. Yeah, he had Gaborik, but it was one great year, one year, back to a great year, up and down. They were never really high scoring team when Henrik was there. So they were always relying so much on him, 2-1, 3-2. He was so integral to every single game because they were always so tight, even under Alain Vigneault, who opened things up a little bit. And then the third component is, he never had that elite defenseman like Adam Fox had either. So these components and how deep this Ranger team is, and that's not knocking the 2012, 14, or 15 Rangers teams, which were great teams. I just think if he had this group, I think Henrik might have gotten that ring that unfortunately he retired without.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I know I grew up, I'm going to show my age a bit, but I grew up on the 2012, 2014, 2015 runs. That's
grew up.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That was
how old I feel right now telling you that, like, I was there for Mike Richter's debut against the Penguins in '89 playoffs.
That's what I always got to argue with my dad. It's like I can never say Richter is better than Lundqvist because I never saw Richter play. So yeah. It's a tough one, but no, absolutely. I mean, I think as young as I was during those games, I still believe if you gave Henrik Lundqvist a team of this caliber, he would have done something special with it, and possibly led to a Stanley Cup championship. But unfortunately, all of that is speculation at this point. We are where we are here on December 13th, 2023. The Rangers defense struggling despite Adam Fox coming back into the lineup a few games ago. Is that strange to you? Because it hasn't been Fox that's been the issue. Obviously, Keandre Miller out against the Leafs on Tuesday for personal reasons, but it seemed that the defense has taken a huge step back since Adam Fox has come into the lineup.
Yeah, it might be just coincidence. And again, to me, defense is 5 guys in front and the goalie, right, on each shift. So when I look at defense, I'm not just looking at the defenseman. Obviously, Fox is an elite defenseman and should elevate, and typically does elevate everybody. Whether it's his defense partner, whether it's his goaltender, or whether it's the forwards in front of him. I think it's probably just coincidence that their all-around defensive play has not been as sharp since Fox came back in. There's an argument that there could be a little bit of a mental breakdown. Maybe there was a little bit more focus, attention to detail when Fox wasn't there for 10 games, right? Forwards more diligent coming back, clogging up that neutral zone, coming back into their own end, not breaking out too quickly, leaving the defenseman and the goalie out to dry, because they knew that the safety net for 24 minutes a night wasn't there, right? Your best guy, your best all-around guy back there in Adam Fox. So perhaps that's it. Certainly it's something they need to figure out, because there's, as you pointed out, you gave the numbers, there is a stark difference for how this team played for the better part of 2 months. The all-around attention to detail, as well as, I think in effort to go get the puck, to stay positionally sound, especially through the neutral zone. That's what impressed me so much in the first 2 months. Among, there were so many things to be impressed about. But that's a mental thing as well as a physical thing. So listen, they've shown that they can do it, right? And they showed that they could do it without their best player, their best defenseman. So I think they can get back to it. And listen, Laviolette's a veteran coach. He knows how to draw them back in. And you better believe behind the scenes they're working on that. And they're seeing a lot of film of, hey, this was just, 3 weeks ago. This was last night. Let's look at the differences, compare and contrast. So I think it's a concern. It's a bump in the road, but I think that's okay over 82 games when you're as good as the Rangers are. And I think they're a really good team. And I think they're a legit cup contender. I think it's okay to go through these periods. I worry more if a team is just sailing along and, there are no bumps in the road and everybody stayed healthy and, and then you get to the playoffs and wait, how did we lose in 6 games in the first round? And again, gross exaggeration, but as long as this doesn't become a month-long issue, as long as it gets nipped in the bud, I think it's a good teaching point for Laviolette and the coaches, and it snaps the players back into attention.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you look at the Rangers' next 9 games, they play three sets of back-to-backs between now and January 2nd. They got to play at Boston, at Toronto, home against the now red-hot Edmonton Oilers, play against the Sabres, who have given them trouble, the Caps, who just beat them, and then a back-to-back in Florida against a very good Panthers team and, arguably one of the best goalies of our generation in Andrei Vasilevsky. Oh, and by the way, January 2nd, you get to go play the Carolina Hurricanes, who have also won 6 in a row right now. So, the schedule doesn't lighten up for the Rangers anytime soon. How likely do you see them pulling themselves out of it within the next, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think they will. Good teams rise to the level of competition. And sometimes, a good team will kind of go the opposite way against teams that they know that they're better than. But I don't necessarily see that right now with the Rangers. I think it's something they're going through no matter the opponent. But, you saw them against LA. I mean, that's I guess, the 2 most recent examples are really good teams that they faced were their last 2 games. Toronto is considered, for the most part, an elite team. And so are the Kings, who are off to, like the Rangers, just a marvelous start this season. And we saw what they did against the Kings, right? They came out. I thought they dictated the play. I thought they were really good defensively. Obviously, Quick made some unreal saves in that game. But they looked like a team that were motivated by their previous loss, right? And they played so much better for the most part over 60 minutes. And then against Toronto, you had, just that first 20 minutes, they were vastly outplayed. Like Toronto deserved the lead that they ran out to. And then they pulled it together in the second period, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, this is what the Rangers do. They can fall behind even against a really good team. And then all of a sudden, slowly but surely, they've locked it down. Toronto wasn't getting good chances. Igor hardly had to do anything in the second period. And they took that game over, get 2 goals back, 4-3. I went into that intermission. I'm like, wow, they're going to do this again, aren't they? And then, the penalty, the power play goal, and, Toronto kind of found its game again in the third. But I'm not worried about them facing good opposition coming up. In fact, I think it's a good thing. I think it helps with the focus, especially going through what they're going through now. The holidays coming up and everything. What's best to keep your focus? Probably playing your key rivals. And if you're really an elite team like the Rangers, playing the best of the best in the league.
Well, fast forwarding to, let's say, April, May, and June, you're only going to play good teams, obviously.
Look at you, and June, huh?
Yeah, and June, come playoff time. Because it works part of this question, is this Rangers team a cup contending team? Are they a team that you see could come out of the Eastern Conference at the end of the season?
Yes, I do. Doesn't mean they will. There are so many things that come into play come playoff time, right? I'm a huge believer that you need to be playing your best hockey going into the playoffs. I don't think it's very rare that you could really be stumbling down the stretch and then, we're a good team. We turn it on, game 1, round 1. So I think they need to be playing their best hockey then. I go as far as to say is Igor needs to be their best player when the playoffs begin, and then take it from there. They are the reason why I think they're legit contenders, talent wise, for sure. You have an elite level power play, and I know it does this, but that's an elite power play. You have elite players on that power play, and special teams are massive come playoff time. I think you have an elite goalie, not playing at an elite level right now, but I think he's an elite goalie. So you have that in your back pocket as well. Things that you can't predict, health, and listen, they've overcome things this year that they haven't had to overcome in recent years. Fox out 10 games, Heedle's still out, Kako out for quite a while. That's a big deal. And we'll see where they're at, come playoff time with their health. But they're a really resilient team. And I think we saw that in the playoffs a couple of years ago for sure. And that's still the makeup of this group. And it kind of goes back to, talking about the game Tuesday against Toronto. They're down 4-1, take over the second period is 4-3, show that resiliency to the point of I'm almost conditioned to think, oh yeah, I know Toronto's good, but Rangers going to win this game. That's what they do. But it's kind of that confidence and resiliency that they have, I think, goes a long way in the postseason as well. Again, at the end of the day, your best players are going to have to be your best players. So while it'll be important that the Goudreau VC Pitlick line continues to contribute and, do things at both ends of the ice, they're not going to win you the Stanley Cup. Panarin's got to be elite in the playoffs. Has to get over that hump. And then Igor needs to be your best player. And then Fox, Savannah, Jag, Kreider, they all need to be themselves. And then to me, the rest falls in line. And, then maybe you get a Lafreniere step up and, be have a massive playoff, or a Kako, a Heedle, if they're healthy, whatever. But resiliency is key. Depth is key. The goalie is key, and Panarin being elite in the playoffs. If they get that, they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, as tough as it sounds right now, the way the Rangers are playing, still got a long way to go until postseason. Only 28 games into the year, so plenty of time to get right and get ready come April. But Jim Cerny, thank you very much for joining Forever Blueshirts today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Steve. It was a lot of fun.